Well, daily greetings and welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast sponsored by the Draft Professors. We are here today with Draft Professor Jack Brentnall. Jack, good day to you. Is the UK under like 2 feet of snow right now, or is your weather better than mine?
No, our weather's better. I mean, well, better is putting it maybe a bit optimistically. It's wet. We had snow a couple of weeks ago, but it's nothing like the snow you'll be getting over there. It kind of it's like a light bit of dusting. That's all we get. But everything still grinds to a halt, so it's pretty pathetic.
Yeah, so I saw pictures. I think it was Devin Jackson actually that posted one from the Shrine Bowl where the field was covered with snow earlier in the week.
Wow.
I'm a little bit further north, so I'm in Ohio, which is maybe 2,000 miles from Texas, and I woke up to about 2 feet of snow this morning.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, if we get 5 inches, everyone loses their mind and says it's gone crazy. It's a really heavy day of snow. So,
yeah, and then I saw pictures like it snowed in New Orleans, and New Orleans and Mobile are really close.
oh yeah.
So, I like this year I chose not to go to the Senior Bowl, and I'm not really having any regrets on the decision because I don't want to watch practice with snow on the ground.
Yeah,
No.
you want at least something like nice, approaching nice weather, don't you? Especially if you're going to be. I wonder if they'll move indoors because they do that sometimes, don't they? So I wonder if they'll move it indoors if it's bad weather. But
Well, right. So they have like a practice, and you can't even call it a bubble. They have a covered practice facility, but it doesn't have walls. So they can be protected from the rain, but not from the temperature.
Yeah, okay. Not as good as I thought then.
Yeah, and I've only been to Mobile once, but I believe my recollection of what that facility looked like, it was just a shelter from the rain. But maybe they have an alternative indoor facility I'm less aware of. But we are here to talk about your top 50. And we're doing this in January. So this is the week of the Shrine Bowl practices, the week before the Senior Bowl practices. Everything is before the combine. How much does your top 50 change, like from now through the combine?
So it will change probably a fair bit. I think the thing for me is like I think I'm up to about 150 prospects watched. But there will inevitably be others that I've not got to that will probably bump their way in, or there'll be guys on this list who I revisit the tape, or guys just outside this list who I revisit the tape and they end up bumping in. So there'll be some movement. I don't think there'll be anything drastic, but I mean, like for example, there was a guy I watched just this week who's made his way into the first round. I say first round. It's not a true first round grade, but he's in the kind of top 32 of my big board, and that was a guy I watched just this week. So in terms of my grading, the biggest change over the last week has been all of the analytics stuff that now the season's finished, pulling all the data from the 2025 season, because that gets weighted at least at certain positions. So I don't use it at offensive line, for example, but most other positions will have a proportion of the grade kind of bumped or lowered based on analytics. So but I'd say it's fairly fixed. We'll see.
Okay. And we're going to do your top 50 from 50 to 1 or from 1 to 50?
Let's do 50 to 1 because that keeps a little bit of, I mean, I think everyone, well, we maybe all know who some of the top names are, but I think there'll be a few surprises along the way. So maybe if I just take kind of the first 10 and then go from there. So 50, I've got Kamari Ramsey, the safety from USC. 49, Jake Golday, the linebacker from Cincinnati. 48, Chris Bell, wide receiver from Louisville. 47, Chris Brazzell, wide receiver from Tennessee. 46, Dylan Thieneman, safety from Oregon. 45, Kristen Miller, the defensive tackle from Georgia. 44, Zion Young, the edge from Missouri. 43, Emmett Johnson, the running back from Nebraska. 42, Brandon Cisse, the cornerback from South Carolina. 41, Darrell Jackson Jr., the defensive tackle from Florida State, and we'll go 40, D'Angelo Pons, cornerback from Indiana. So that's the 40 through 50.
So, couple of teasers for the rest of the podcast. So, you had Emmett Johnson in your top 50. How many more running backs will be in your top 50?
One.
Okay. So that suspense has been squashed. Okay.
Yeah, one. Yeah, and I mean, I think Johnson will probably end up bumping out once there are a few other guys I've watched, just because. So, kind of full disclosure, and it'll probably become clear as we go through near the top. My big board will take into account positional value. So, whereas I've obviously got grades on these guys in terms of their respective positions, for me, the big board always has positional value accounted for. So, I think as I get through there are some positions I've watched loads of. So obviously edge, defensive tackle, wide receiver. There are others I've watched less of or need to revisit a few more. So I think Johnson is probably one of those names that could conceivably be pushed out the top 50 by the time we get around to probably combine time. But he's hanging on in there at the moment.
Okay. And then, and again, this is a teaser to set up the other 40. How many tight ends are we going to hear?
There is only one.
Okay. You see, some of the suspense is just dissipating right there, right? So, and then out of all the players that you listed, and it is no surprise to me that you have the player in your top 50, Darrell Jackson Jr. is a very, I think as some draft professors would put it, that's a choice. Darrell Jackson Jr. went in like round 3 of the group mock that we did on Friday. And one of the draft professors on the podcast says, yeah, that's a choice. And I said, well, I know people that have Darrell Jackson Jr. even higher than where he went in that mock. So talk about your guy there, because that's definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a big fan of him since kind of first watching him last summer. I think the thing for me is this is a class that is short on, and I think this will be a conversation that will kind of permeate through some of the other discussions. This is a class that's short on blue chip talents, and there are maybe not as many guys at premium positions that would have been there in previous classes or maybe future classes. So I think there are a lot of guys on this list that are probably bumped up, I don't know, maybe 10 spots, 15 maybe, from a traditional draft. But appreciate then, even if you bumped Darrell Jackson down 15 spots, that's still a second round pick. For me, what I like about him is, the measurables are incredible in terms of the size, the length, the size. I think how he carries his weight, I think, is really important though as well. Like we've seen a lot of big defensive tackles, but I mean he carries that weight incredibly well. I think from day one you can rely on him as a run defender. I think he is incredibly strong. He uses his length well. You will see him kind of jolt guys on contact. His hands have loads of power. Does he offer a lot yet as a pass rusher? No, he doesn't. And I'm not going to sit here and say he's an amazing pass rusher, because he's not. The tools tell me that he can probably get there. I mean, the strength's there. So, that already gives you, in theory, the ability to win with power, which I think is incredibly important at defensive tackle. So I'm just willing to take a guy who I know at least can be a good contributor on early downs, and then hope that I can develop with the tools into something more.
Okay, and I think I've heard you say that before.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. He's one of my guys. He's one of the guys that I'm just willing to be wrong on a player who is built like that, and who I think the tape is. It's not pure tools. I think the tape is good. Like I say, not necessarily as a pass rusher, but I think you see him already making an impact, and that matters.
Okay. And anybody else in that first group of 10 that you want to highlight, or do you want to move on to your next 10?
I mean, D'Angelo Pons, I think, is a really interesting conversation, right? The Indiana corner. So he's going to be an amazing kind of benchmark for how people treat size at corner. he's on the opposite end of the scale to Darrell Jackson in that I think he measured in under 5. I think the verified, I think he's 5'8". And I want to say he's 170 something in terms of verified weights. I've got it listed somewhere. Yeah, I've got it 5'8", 174. So he's small, right? And I think that is going to be taking him off certain teams' boards. I know, like, as a Packers fan, he won't be on the Packers board. Now that they've got, John Eric Sullivan in Miami, he won't be on Miami's board. Right? There are just some teams that will say, nope, you don't hit the size threshold. We're not interested. But he is more physical than his size suggests. He's probably not going to play on the boundary in the NFL. I mean, he's got shorter arms and he is undersized. And you did see, if you watched the Ohio State game, you saw Jeremiah Smith giving him trouble in terms of just pure strength. Like, if you match him up against those guys, he is going to struggle. He'll do a great job of trying to compete. Like, the tenacity and effort he plays with, I think, are commendable. But I think he can be a really good nickel. He is one of the best run defending corners in the class, which is crazy to say for a guy who is 5'8" and 170 odd. His ability as a tackler is excellent. He is one of the best tackling corners in the class. He rarely misses. His technique is excellent. He just kind of has that. I could see him as like a Houston Texan, if you know, like with the way that those guys play, like Kamari Lassiter, Jalen Petrie, like he's got that kind of, they're different size profiles, different player profiles, but that similar kind of attitude. So I do think he'll make an impact as a high-level nickel, and I think that is a more important position than it maybe has been in years gone by. He's really fluid, really smooth mover. I'm interested to see how he tests, and I think he's one of those guys that, like, I'm expecting him to test well, and you need to test well if you're going to be that size. If he doesn't, then he's the kind of guy I could move down the board, because if you test poorly, or even, to be honest, kind of middle-of-the-road testing numbers, at that size, it is then more difficult to kind of see it.
Okay. And do you think D'Angelo Pons would be like an ace special teams player if he never made it at slot corner?
So the size is the slight concern, and I don't think from memory he's played a ton of special teams at Indiana. I have a special teams like multiplier bump thing for my grades, and it's kind of based on 1 to 3 with, and he's got a 1. So I don't know, like his attitude and play style makes me think he'll like throw himself in and try. But I think the size is probably going to be a limitation there as well.
Well, you see it, and that's kind of the, let's say, the challenge for a player like this, right? Because usually, like, if a team carries 10 defensive backs on the 53-player roster and it dresses all 10 for Sunday, the 5 backups, the 2 backup safeties, the 3 backup corners need to log a lot of special teams snaps.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a path to say, well, part of the challenge with D'Angelo Pons is that if he isn't starting, are you able to use him on your special teams snaps? And whether that's as a kick returner, as a gunner, or just one of the guys on the field for special teams. Like, I wasn't suggesting returner necessarily, but I would definitely be curious as to how that conversation materializes, because like, my opinion is he should be competing for a starting job as a rookie.
Yeah. And I think if I'm considering him in the top 50 picks, then I'm like any of these guys, I think if you've got special teams, a bit like there are some guys who'll come on to who I've given like high value special teamer grade. But if you're going top 50 or certainly like in the like late first, early second, then you're probably not going to be playing. You'd like at least hope to not be playing a lot of special teams kind of early in your career, because you'd like to think you are, as a premium pick, going to be having your
That's a
time
good
prioritized
point.
there. But if he's not taken there and he's more of a third, fourth round pick, then then it becomes difficult because you can't carry a guy who is not starting and not playing special teams because what are you getting?
Exactly. Exactly. So, Jack, who are the next 10?
So we'll go 39 through 30. We have Jeremy Bernard, wide receiver from Alabama. 38, we have CJ Allen, linebacker from Georgia. 37, Cassius Howell, the edge from Texas A&M. 36, TJ Parker, the edge from Clemson. 35, Denzel Boston, the wide receiver from Washington. 34, Ty Simpson, quarterback from Alabama. 33, Malachi Lawrence, the edge from UCF, not UFC. That'd be very different, wouldn't it?
UCF. Yeah.
UCF. 32 is Lee Hunter, the defensive tackle from Texas Tech. And 31 is Caden McDonald, defensive tackle from Ohio State.
Okay, so none of those surprised me. As I was listening to you, I'm like, I've seen him go in round one of a draft. I've seen him go in round one of a mock, right? So different people are putting every single one of those players in round one of mocks. Just as you look around Twitter and the draft media space, which of those players that you just listed do you think would be drafted the highest?
That's a good question. I think it will probably be Ty Simpson. I think it will be that quarterback boost will get him going higher. The only other one I could see going quite early is Caden McDonald. Now I know there's going to be a lot of debate over, okay, he's a run stuffing nose tackle. How high are you going to take that? But we've seen in recent drafts, like Jordan Davis went top 10 from memory. Kenneth Grant, now maybe he had a little bit more as a pass rusher, but I mean he was first and foremost run stuffing nose. He went first round. So I could see Caden McDonald, but I think it's going to be Ty Simpson because this is a quarterback starved class outside of one guy, and there are plenty of teams that need a quarterback. And I could see a team certainly in the middle of the first round, or maybe at the back end, who was willing to trade up to the middle, convincing themselves that Ty Simpson, yes, he might not be the guy day one, but if you can afford to sit him, I could see a team talking themselves into him.
Okay. So we've heard two linebackers in your top 50, right? Because I heard Golday, I heard CJ Allen.
Mm-hmm.
How many more linebackers are we going to hear?
3.
Does that include Arvell Reese?
That includes Arvell Reese, yeah.
Okay. And then I definitely agree that I think out of that tier, the group of 10 that you listed, I definitely like the Ty Simpson would go highest just based upon the value of quarterback. The other thing that I'm fascinated with that I think deserves a discussion is you have Lee Hunter and Caden McDonald really close to each other. And some of the podcasts at Draft Professor have started saying Lee Hunter should go higher than Caden McDonald because there's more juice, there's more pass rush with Hunter. How do you compare and contrast Lee Hunter with Caden McDonald? Because you did have McDonald higher, but they're separated by only a few spots on your board.
So let me pull up, because I have my grading sheet here. Appreciate the grades maybe in isolation don't mean much, but they are, I think, graded a 6.35 and a 6.35. They are basically identical. So you can kind of, I mean, maybe if I expand it another decimal point, you'll be able to see. But yeah, I mean, it's what flavor you're after, right? So I mean, McDonald is a very clean projection in terms of what he offers. I think he's a run stuffer. He's really stout. He can hold up to double teams. He is going to be the anchor at the kind of heart of your defensive line that will keep the linebackers free, right? We saw it with Ohio State. Both of those linebackers, they can take on blocks and they can deconstruct blocks when they need to. But that defensive line did a great job of kind of eating up blocks from the offensive line and keeping them free. So if you're a team that wants to play kind of a lighter box, too high, you're going to need guys who can two gap, and McDonald is that for me. So I think that's where he fits. Hunter is really weird because he is built like a nose, like in a sense, but he doesn't really play like one. Like he is, yeah, like you said, he's got more juice. He is, I think he's a good pass rusher. He doesn't have a ton of moves, but the moves he does have are really effective. He's quick off the line. He does struggle a bit with pad level, which is why I'm less keen on him as a kind of pure nose. But if you're wanting a guy who can maybe move around the front a bit more, maybe play some three tech, play some nose occasionally, then I'd think Lee Hunter's more the guy you're after. Certainly, if you're wanting like interior pressure, Lee Hunter is the guy you want to go for. So I think I can see why both teams and analysts, depending on how you value those things, could have these guys not just in different orders, but quite some like magnitude apart.
Yeah, and okay, so you've mentioned Hunter, you've mentioned McDonald. How many more defensive tackles are we going to hear with the next 29 players?
You will hear two.
Yep, and the choice was going to be one or two.
Yeah, it's two.
Okay, so any other players in your 30 through 39 that you want to give a shout out to?
I think again, I suppose there's two that I think are quite interesting ones. I think Jeremy Bernard from Alabama is an interesting one, the wide receiver. I think he is one of those guys who he's not flashy. He's not necessarily going to be your kind of alpha wide receiver one, as you can obviously tell by the fact he's number 39. But he is just a consistently reliable pass catcher. He is a guy that I just think is going to have a long NFL career. He, like I said, yeah, not flashy, but if you want kind of a second wide receiver who's got strong hands, who has attention to detail as a route runner, who's tough after the catch, right? He's not the most amazing athlete, but he is tough after the catch and he's difficult to bring down. He had like 15 missed tackles last year, right? So he is a force after the catch. Alabama were using him on jet sweeps and design touches, which I'm not sure he'll get much of in the NFL, but he is an interesting receiver who I think you can see a bit of a kind of Chris Godwin type with him, where maybe you don't want him as your number one, but if you pair him with a kind of alpha outside wide receiver, he can be a guy who can play some Z, can play some slot. He's athletically a little limited, and I don't think he's got the biggest catch radius, but I think if you put him in the slot, which he didn't do as much of at Alabama as maybe I'd like, I think that's where you could really unlock the potential with him. And then the other one is Cassius Howell, the edge from Texas A&M. I think Howell, again, it's kind of like Pons, but a bit of a different conversation, right? Howell is technically refined. His hand placement and timing, I think, are brilliant. He has a number of different ways to win as a pass rusher. So you see him use a number of moves. You'll see him use cross chop. He's got a nice ghost move. He'll win on the inside as well. You'll see him kind of threaten the outside with that quickness. Use the inside spin. Like, I think he had 3 sacks on 3 plays against Utah State this season. And I think each of them he was winning in a different way, right? It's not just a guy who's winning speed, speed, speed. So he's a polished pass rusher. The thing is, he just doesn't have great length. He's shorter. He's 6'2". His arms are short. I think they're among the shortest of like any edge we've seen in like a decade. So that is going to be a concern. He has a weird like stance, which I think is more of a preference thing than something he's been taught, where he'll kind of stand like facing the sideline rather than forward. So you kind of see him then false step, and it limits that initial explosiveness, which makes you wonder how explosive he would be if he played kind of with more traditional technique, considering he's already pretty quick. But I think, again, he'll be another great test case of how much length matters at edge. Kind of a shame not to see him at the Senior Bowl. I think he was one of the guys I'd be really interested to see in the one-on-ones. I think he'd have done really well. So it's a shame he's not going to be participating anymore. But yeah, a guy that I would happily have as my kind of second edge, on the front.
So do you think Howell is a 3-4 outside linebacker, or do you think he could be a 4-3 edge on first and second down?
It's tricky. I think he can. I think he's probably best as a 3-4 outside linebacker. I think he can play in a 4-3. I think one of the things that he does have in his arsenal that maybe some smaller edges don't is, yes, he's shorter, but that does give him really good leverage. And you do see him kind of maximize that and get under blockers. But when he played Miami, there were just reps there where I'm like, I don't really want him hand in the dirt, because when he went up against those two Miami tackles who are big and strong, he struggled. So I think probably 3-4, but I think he could do either.
Okay. So the next group of 10. So now we're talking what this is now. If I'm doing my math right, this is gonna be 29 through 20. So
yes,
a lot of these guys are probably going round 1.
Yes, and this is where we might get a couple of, I don't know. They probably are surprise names. There's a couple of like my guys in here, so we'll I'm sure there'll be topics of conversation. So at 29, kicking it off with one of my guys. Oh no, actually no, I didn't do 30 last time, did I? So 30, Keldrick Falk, edge rusher from Auburn. 29, Genesis Smith, safety from Arizona. 28, Monroe Freeling, the offensive tackle from Georgia. 27, Colton Hood, the cornerback from Tennessee. 26, Josiah Trotter, linebacker from Missouri. 25, Keith Abney, corner from Arizona State. 24, Avion Terrell, cornerback from Clemson. 23, Emmanuel Pregnon, the guard from Oregon. 22, Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end from Oregon. And we'll finish at 21. 21, Traden Stukes, the corner from Arizona.
Okay. Now we're cooking. And we're cooking.
Now we've got a few flag plants.
Yes. Okay. So for starters, when you told me that you had 3 linebackers left, I was not expecting Trotter to be one of the 3. Right. So talk about Josiah Trotter, the redshirt sophomore from Missouri.
I think the thing for me with Trotter is he's like a true heat-seeking missile at linebacker. He is incredible at reading the run. His ability to kind of diagnose plays and trigger, I think he's excellent, especially considering he's a redshirt sophomore, still only 20 years old as well. He has some of the strongest hands of any linebacker prospect I've seen in this class. I think maybe only Arvell Reese is the guy I would say has stronger hands. The amount of times you see him coming downhill and engaging with an offensive lineman, and he will move the offensive lineman back. There are not many linebackers in this class that can do that, right? So I think that is excellent. His hands are, I mean, he almost has like edge rusher hands. If you watch him deconstruct blocks, and you see it when he blitzes, he knows how to get around blockers. He knows how to get through blockers. He'll win in a number of different ways as a run defender and as a pass rusher. He can slip blocks. He's quick enough to slip blocks, but he's also not afraid of taking them on, stacking and shedding. He is a little limited in coverage at the moment. Now, I think the coverage limitations come mainly from instinct and experience, not athleticism. So that's why I'm maybe higher on him than some of the other linebackers in this class who I have coverage reservations over, because some of them, maybe like a Jacob Rodriguez or a Torian York from Texas A&M, I think their coverage limitations are primarily athletic limitations and the ability to play in space. Whereas for me, with Trotter, it's primarily just kind of eyes, comfort, in kind of reading and not biting. He's quite aggressive. That aggressiveness does work against him. So I'd like to think he can develop. The one thing that maybe concerns me a little with him, I mean, there's part of me that wants him higher, but on my board. But the one thing that concerns me a little is the medicals. He's had multiple knee surgeries in college, so that is going to have to be something that's checked out. But assuming that the medicals are all good, and I think again this is another classic case of where the combine is important, right? Not so much how fast he runs, but depending on what we hear back on that, that'll impact where he ends up on my final board. But a player who just has that kind of aggressive hair on fire style that I just can't get enough of at a linebacker.
And then you listed Dylan Thieneman, I think, in the group that was 50 to 41.
Yes.
And then you just listed Genesis Smith in your group that was 29 to 20, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, 30 to 21 I ended up with. I'm doing
Okay.
this in a random order, but yes. Yeah.
Okay. So you definitely have Genesis Smith a notch higher than Thieneman, like on your grading scale. How many more safeties will we be talking about? So you only have 3 safeties in your top 50?
I do. One of the things I said earlier was about kind of positions I need to go back and recheck some guys from summer and watch some more. Safety is one of those positions. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a couple of guys like I need to go back and watch Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. There's a couple of others there. But there is only one more in the top 20. There's only one more. So Genesis Smith is my safety 2 as it stands.
Nice. So talk about Genesis Smith for a few minutes.
Yes, I mean he's one of the few true free safeties I've seen in this class. If you're looking for a centre fielder who you can play cover 1, cover 3 with, he's your man. He's got good size, 6'2", 204. He has really impressive range. You see some amazing plays. I think it was in the Kansas State game. There was just a play where he was working as the deep center fielder. They try and run a post behind him, and he just turns and runs and makes this play that he has no right to make on the ball in terms of where he was when he started and where he ends up. Basically prevented a touchdown. He's quick. He's fluid. I think he has a really nice feel for zone. He trusts his eyes, which I think is really important at safety. You can't be hesitant. You can't be a kind of see and chase player. He has multiple reps where you see him kind of anticipate and jump routes before the quarterback has thrown the ball. So his game reminds me quite a bit of Kalen Bullock coming out of USC, who was obviously now with the Texans. I think in good and bad, right? So I think Bullock, for me, he was coverage first, great feel for kind of zone, good range on the back end, good eyes, ball skills. The big concern with Bullock, as it is with Smith, is he's not a great tackler. He struggles a bit in terms of getting off blockers in the run game, but what's really frustrating about him is he will get in the right place to make a tackle, and then he just doesn't have the control to break down and make the play. There are just some whiffs on tape that are just mind-boggling because you see him, he gets in the right place, and then either he's just doesn't make the play at all, or he just whiffs completely. So, I mean, Bullock has done really well despite those concerns, and I think Smith is a guy that you can coach up a little. He's never going to be an amazing tackler. He's never going to be a top end, run support player. But if you're playing a lot of single high, you need that less because he's not in a run fit. So, just a guy I like, and I think a rare skill set, not in terms of like in previous classes, but there aren't many single high safeties in this class for me. So I think that bumps him up a little bit.
Okay. And trying to think of other players you mentioned, because there were definitely a few surprises there. So Trotter and Smith were the players that immediately jumped out at me that, okay, I feel like you're higher than a lot of the other podcasters at Draft Professor. I wouldn't want to call that consensus, but you had mentioned Denzel Boston and Jeremy Bernard in the prior tier. Did I hear any wide receiver names called in this group of 10? I don't think I did.
No, you didn't. No, the only pass catcher was Kenyon Sadiq, but no wide receivers.
Okay, and then I heard Monroe Freeling, didn't I?
Yes, you did. Yeah, he's 28.
So you're expecting that Monroe Freeling to go in round 1?
I think he will. It's not like it's, as you can probably guess by him being 28, it's not like a true first round grade for me. It's probably more like a kind of second, mid second. But I think he will go in round 1. Yeah, I think he will. I think he's a very good pass protector, and I think that always carries a lot of weight. He is also a true tackle. There are a couple of guys further up the board where there is going to be debate about, do you move them inside, or do they stay at tackle, or can they operate on an island consistently? Whereas I think Freeling is a true left tackle in a class that maybe doesn't have too many of those. So I think that will bump him up boards. What prevents him from being higher for me is I think he's got a long way to go as a run blocker. He will drop his head a lot, and he'll just kind of whiff on blocks because he'll get over his toes and just whiff. His leverage is also an issue at times. He'll duck his head at times, but then you'll also see him just playing really tall. I mean, he's listed at 6'7". Whether he actually measures in at 6'7", I don't know. But I mean, he is tall, and that does hinder him a little. And I think the hand placement in the run game is kind of needs a bit of work. Tends to be quite wide, quite low. But that's the kind of thing that he feels like he's got the tools, right? He's a really good athlete. He has prototypical frame, good length. You see the punch strength in pass protection. Like when he uses that outside hand, he will jar. So you do maybe think there's potential for him to improve in the run game. He is a true junior. I was kind of expecting him to go back to school, but I think he's probably thinking, look, in a class that lacks true left tackles, why not take a chance? Because I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up going top 15. I wouldn't. I mean, I just think, as much as I don't think the distinction between left and right tackle is as much of a thing as it maybe used to be made out to be, NFL teams do value left tackles a lot, and I think he will rise up to that.
And I loved hearing that with Freeling, because I'm going to say you're validating some of what my instincts were. So kind of part of my gift is I can listen to, you give scouting reports, and Brian and Drew and others kind of give, okay, does the tackle have the measurables, which Freeling does? Mm-hmm. And that's always like the first thing I listen to on a tackle is, are they a true tackle, which you alluded to? And then trying to see where they grade out, because how do I want to say this? If a team needs a tackle, there's going to be very few needs on the roster that are higher. If you have a quarterback but don't have a tackle, you should be taking the tackle before the wide receiver. It's the whole Jamar Chase over Penei Sewell discussion, but the gym roster building logic. A quarterback is going to be on your team for 15 or 20 years. Your offensive tackle is going to be on your team for 10 or 15 years. If you hit on the tackle, you don't need to draft another one for a long time.
Yep.
Right? So now the rest of your draft picks, you're now focused on 20 roster spots because you've got quarterback and tackle solidified. So, I loved hearing what you had to say about Freeling and how high you have him. And I'm going to say that you're early on Freeling, because I don't hear other people grading him that high yet.
I think I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of starts to get more buzz over the next kind of couple of weeks, because I think a lot of people, myself included, thought he was probably going to go back to school. I only got to his tape last week because I just thought he was going back. And then when he declared, it was like, okay, let's see what he's got. And he just looks like the kind of guy who's going to go early.
Okay. Any other players in that group of 10 that you want to highlight, or do we want to talk about players 11 through, or I should say 10 through 20, 10 through 9.
I think the only other one on that list that I will kind of give a bit of a shout out to is another Arizona player, Traden Stukes, the corner from Arizona. So he is a nickel, but he can play a bit of safety as well. He's one of the best athletes I've watched in terms of this year's defensive back group. He has incredible recovery speed. There was a play, I think it was in the, I think it was two I had on my list. I think one was in the Cincinnati game and the other one might have been in the Kansas game, where he makes an incredible play in pursuit, like chases down as a backside defender. He has no right to even get to the running back. The running back is out in space, looks like he's going to be a touchdown, and he makes the kind of ankle grab tackle to prevent it. He feels like a guy who, I mean, I would be surprised if he doesn't run something in the 4.3s, and it might be low 4.3s. Ball hawk as well. Like he had a forced incompletion on about 25% of his targets in 2025. And he's kind of got good effort and physicality, I think, against the run. He's not really played on the boundary much. He doesn't really play any press, given he's kind of playing a lot of off coverage from the nickel. And again, like Genesis Smith, tackling technique needs a bit of work. The medicals, again, he's gonna be another player where the medicals will be interesting. So he tore his ACL in 2024. So he is a sixth-year senior, which again is why maybe some people are less high on him. But to me, I'm less bothered. Like if you're a sixth-year senior and you need work and you need like plenty of room to grow, then maybe I'm less interested. But to me, he feels like a day one starter at nickel. And like I say, he's a nickel who can play a bit of safety, and that versatility, I think with the way the defenses are going in terms of coverage disguises, I think that's the kind of thing that could get him drafted more highly than people think. I mean, I don't know where the consensus is on it at the moment. Certainly, I don't think I've seen him in many first rounds, but I think he's a player certainly as the combine comes along, if he tests, I can see him picking up buzz. I think he's in Mobile as well. So I'm interested to see how he does in the one-on-ones. But yeah, a player I like a lot.
So I thought Ian Cummings was high on Traden Stukes. I just tagged him in a tweet and said, Ian, you got to check out Jack's grade. So I don't know that Ian had Stukes in his top 50, but Ian really liked Stukes when we did corners. Because like Ian was saying, there's like almost no doubt he should be in the top 100. But like the discussion when we were doing like cornerback scouting reports is how high can you take a slot corner?
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, you alluded to that a little bit as you were kind of giving your assessment. So if you're a team that plays nickel, 50 to 75% of the time, Stukes in the top 2 rounds makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Unlike a lot of nickels, I think he could potentially play on the boundary. I mean, he's 6'1", 195. I don't know what his arm length is going to be, but like he's not a D'Angelo Pons where you go, oh, right, he's way too small. He'll get bullied by bigger receivers. He's the kind of guy I can see playing like big nickel, like he can match up to bigger slots and be fine.
Okay.
Which I think that will help in the same way like a Devon Witherspoon. Like I know he played outside when he was at Illinois, but like in the same way he can kind of move in and out for Seattle. I think it's a similar thing where he potentially has that in him, but I think that at least he has that safety corner versatility.
Okay. Any other players in this group of 10, or are we going to go a notch higher on the draft board?
I think we go a notch higher. We'll go 20 through 11, and then we'll do the top 10 all in one. So 20, we have Caleb Lomu, the offensive tackle from Utah. At 19, we have his teammate, Spencer Fano, the offensive tackle. 18, Mansour Delane, the corner from LSU. 17, Vega Ioane, the guard from Penn State. 16, Casey Concepcion, the wide receiver from Texas A&M. 15, Jordan Tyson, wide receiver from Arizona State. 14, Blake Miller, Clemson offensive tackle. And then you've got a pair of defensive tackles here. These are where those two are. You've got Caleb Banks, the defensive tackle from Florida, 13. And then Clemson's Peter Woods at 12. And then rounding out that group, you've got Francis Mauigoa, the offensive tackle from Miami, at 11.
Okay. So you had a surprise in there for me. There was a Could you go through those one more time?
Yeah. So it's 20 is Caleb Lomu, 19 is Spencer Fano, 18 is Mansour Delane, 17 is Vega Ioane, 16 is Casey Concepcion, 15 is Jordan Tyson, 14 is Blake Miller, 13 is Caleb Banks.
Miller.
It's Blake Miller. Yeah.
Okay. So you have Monroe Freeling as an offensive tackle, and he was in the previous group of 10.
Yeah.
You have Blake Miller confirmed like in your top 20.
Yeah.
You are the first person I have heard with Blake Miller this high. So can you kind of give your breakdown of Blake Miller and why you are projecting him to be this high?
Sure. Yes. I mean, he's fourth year senior, started all 4 years at Clemson, played right tackle. I think that experience is a big part of it. He is savvy, he's smart, he reads fronts well, he is good against stunts and twists. He is in the conversation. I mean, in most classes, I'd say he's the best athlete at offensive tackle. This just so happens to be a class that has those two guys from Utah who are also incredible athletes. But he's certainly in the conversation as one of the best athletes at offensive tackle in this class. I think he's an elite athlete, and I don't use the word elite lightly when it comes to prospects. I think he's incredibly explosive. He's really fluid. Like, you watch him in pass protection, his feet are light, they're quick. He's able to redirect effortlessly. So you'll see guys try and cross face, and he just has that smoothness to just quickly redirect, cut off inside counters. He's more than quick enough to handle speed around the arc. His outside hand is really strong in pass protection. You'll see him kind of jolt. I think he often gets miscast as a bit of a kind of finesse player. I think everyone knows he's athletic, but I don't think he necessarily gets enough credit for that. He does have a firm punch. And he is pretty tough in the run game. He's not ever going to be a true like road grader who's going to just move guys all the time. But he's tough. He fights. He is also a mean finisher. Like, he has so many pancake blocks on his tape. I think he is one of those guys for me where he is a very good pass protector. He is good in the run game, good enough in the run game. And I just think with those kind of tools, he's 35 inch arms, I think, as well. I mean, he's built like he has the prototypical offensive tackle build, the ideal athleticism. Now, he's a bit taller, and that does lead to some pad level issues. He will overextend at times, and he will. The thing that really kind of the one thing that was a bit of a kind of grinding my gears thing on his tape was he's quite comfortable letting power rushes into his chest, right? Which I don't quite know why he does that, but he will be passive at times. But like you listen to those things where, and the other thing on my list is like wide hands, right? Wide hands, overextension, letting power into his chest. They're all coachable. Now, the pad level is never going to be, he's never going to play like he's 6'2", right? But those things are coachable. The rest of the game is really good. I'm kind of nitpicking at the technique there a bit. I just see the makings of a franchise tackle in Blake Miller. And I think if he tests, I think he could wow people at the combine, and I think he'll start any more buzz.
Okay, so I love hearing that because, again, these are relatively fresh takes that I haven't heard on other podcasts I follow. And that's why at Draft Professor, we like a lot of people giving their opinions. is we can kind of start having this Blake Miller round one discussion. I don't know that I have seen Blake Miller going in round one of a mock yet, but I can guarantee you on mocks that I do, I'll be putting them in round one just for shock value, and I will be sure to tag you in the response.
Fine by me.
Yeah. Any other player so I think Casey Concepcion was the tier before, and then I heard Tyson in this tier.
So they're both in this tier. They're 15 and 16. Tyson at 15, Concepcion at 16.
Okay. So how many? I'm going to refresh my memory as to how many wide receiver names that we've heard, because we've heard Bernard in a previous tier.
We had Chris Bell at 48, Chris Brazel at 47. We had Bernard at 39, Boston at 35, and then it's Concepcion at 16, and then Tyson at 15.
Okay. So, and I'm assuming we're going to hear a couple more wide receiver names, or at least one more wide receiver name.
Yeah, two more.
Yeah. So we were having this discussion on a podcast yesterday, because yesterday we did a wide receiver podcast. And there are people right now with like 11 wide receivers in their top 50. And I want to say you have, it sounds like, is that 8 or 9 that I counted?
I'll tell you, I think it's 9. No, it's 8. 8.
Okay. So 8 in your top 50. So just depending upon how somebody grades, like this is feeling like it, like at the top, it may not be the Malik Neighbors wide receiver caliber, but there's plenty of wide receivers to like in the top 50.
Yeah. I think I'm kind of resigned to the fact we don't have bad wide receiver classes anymore. We might not necessarily always have great wide receiver classes, but I mean, coming into the summer, like I did a mailbag article on the Touchdown probably like 3 or 4 weeks into the season. And someone asked about like which position groups am I like not too optimistic about, and I said wide receiver, and then promptly all these guys start breaking out, and I'm like, okay, no, actually I've changed my mind. And then, like, to be honest, if you ask me what I think the best position is in this class, it might be wide receiver. I mean, I like this cornerback class, but it might be wide receiver. It's probably linebacker actually, but wide receivers. If you're looking at offensive ones, I think it's definitely wide receiver. I think there's talent there. There are different play styles. There are different kind of archetypes depending on what you need. I think some people might be surprised by Jordan Tyson at 15. Like, full disclosure, he was my wide receiver 1 over summer. I just think the injury concerns are just getting to a point now where I would struggle to take him, certainly before the other 2 guys who we're going to mention in a little bit. But he's talented. He's a great route runner. He is quick. He has great hands. But I mean, he has one of the scariest injury histories of any wide receiver I can remember, right? He had a broken collarbone in 2024, hamstring issue this year. I think he's torn his ACL and his PCL before. Like, this is multiple serious injuries.
Right, and it's not to the same body part.
Yeah.
Right, because I think like if it's a knee and then it's the same knee, right?
Yeah.
You just say, okay, is the knee okay? But,
yes. This is more like a general durability point rather than like one of those guys who just has recurrent, knee or ankle or foot injuries. Or
so the take on yesterday's wide receiver podcast was, if Jordan Tyson was completely healthy, he's wide receiver 1, and he's like in the Malik Neighbors tier of wide receivers. How close are you to agreeing with that take?
So he wouldn't be in that tier for me. So I just pulled up my grading sheet, because basically I'll have my grades and then I apply like the medical element and character, special teams, all those other bits that boost or lower it. I have he would be basically pretty much neck and neck for wide receiver 2 in this class, but he wouldn't, even if you discount the injury stuff. I have other guys I prefer. Now
Okay.
they're close. They are close. Like if you were like looking at them on what would be that big board, they would be, a matter of picks apart. There is just one guy who I would have a little bit further out ahead.
Okay. Well, and I'll get to the Roma Dunze part of that take when we get to the other 2 wide receivers. Mm-hmm. Any other players in this tier that you want to talk about, or do we want to move into your top 10?
Let's go into the top 10. That's the big blockbuster bit, isn't it?
Drum roll.
So here we go. Right, number 10, Jeremiah Love, running back from Notre Dame. Number 9, David Bailey, the edge from Texas Tech. Number 8, Ruben Bain, the edge from Miami. Number 7, Mekhi Lemon, wide receiver from USC. Number 6, Caleb Downs, safety from Ohio State. Number 5, Jamod McCoy, cornerback from Tennessee. Number 4, Carnell Tate, wide receiver from Ohio State. We're going to get used to saying Ohio State here, because number 3, Arvell Reese, linebacker, Ohio State. Number 2, Sonny Styles, linebacker, Ohio State. And number 1, Fernando Mendoza, quarterback from Indiana.
Okay. So I'm going to start with the wide receivers. How many of the wide receivers in this class would you grade higher than Rome Odunze?
Tate and Lemon.
Okay, so you would have 2. So if this class were superimposed on the 2024 wide receiver class, which had 3 wide receivers go in the top 10, you would have 2 of them graded higher than Rome Odunze.
Yes.
Okay. So why don't you talk about Lemon and Tate for a little bit?
So I think for me with those 2, like Lemon first, right? There's going to be all sorts of talk about his size, right? He's 5'11", 190. There's going to be endless debate about, okay, is he a slot? Is he not a slot? I think we've kind of got to the point with the NFL where I'm less interested in that debate and I'm more interested in, can you consistently separate and can you make plays? I think where I've been burnt with wide receiver evaluations in the past is I've either said, oh, he's a slot only, just because they're a bit smaller, or they're better in the slot. The way the NFL plays now, like guys like Lemon are perfect for it, right? Yes, there will be some teams that line up in traditional kind of 11 personnel. You'll have your slot receiver. You look at what the best teams are doing, and they're using stacks, they're using bunches, they're getting creative how they line these guys up, right? Mekhi Lemon reminds me a lot of Amon-Ra St. Brown coming out of USC, and I don't like doing same school comps, but I just think there is a real similarity to their game. His hands are amongst the best that I've seen. He is incredibly fluid. He's explosive. He is a really reliable separator in the short and intermediate areas of the field. He's way tougher, which I think this is where the St. Brown conversation kind of comes in. Way tougher over the middle of the field than he has any right to be at his size. And he brings it as a blocker. Now, is he the strongest guy on the field? No, he's not. But that effort, like I've spent too many years watching Packers games, right? That wide receiver blocking does matter to me. But I think that is important. And he is really creative after the catch. Forced 21 missed tackles in 2025, right? So for me, with a wide receiver, I look at 3 things primarily. Like there's all sorts of different things that go in my grading, but it's like you need to either win before the catch, i.e. with route running and release package, all that sort of stuff. You need to win at the catch point, and you need to win after the catch. Now, not every player will do all three. Very few players do all 3. I think most guys you're talking about in the first round will often do 2. You don't ever get very many in the first round that just do 1. If you can do 2, great. There are very few who do 3. Lemon, he's close to doing all 3. Now, he's not going to be a guy who beats press coverage and physical corners consistently in the NFL. If you line him up as your X receiver, he's not going to thrive. But you don't need to. You just don't need to. He is an incredible route runner. Get him free releases, play him as a Z, play him as a slot, use him in stacks and bunches, and just get him the ball. Because I just think he's a creator, he is tough, and he's just a player I really fell in love with this year. I have to say, I thought he was good over summer, but this year I just think he maximized every opportunity he got.
Okay. And then the other wide receiver in your top 10 was Carnell Tate.
Yeah. So for me, Tate is your prototypical X in this class. He is excellent route runner. He's not the most kind of explosive necessarily. He's pretty explosive, but he certainly doesn't have the most incredible long speed. But he is a 3-level threat despite that. He will win through technique and detail. The ability he has to attack the vertical plane through subtle shifts and movements in his routes, I think is excellent. And at the end of the day, we all lose track of how fast guys time in terms of stopwatch. But if you can separate with technique, that translates. His hands are elite. They are some of the strongest hands I can remember seeing in a receiver prospect. He is consistently active with how he attacks the football. He can play through contact. There were numerous contested catches he made on tape. He is a ball winner if he needs to be. And there were a number of times he was underthrown by his quarterback. He is just the detail guy, right? And that translates. Now, he's not the biggest creator after the catch. But if you remove that aspect of his game, the rest of it, in terms of his route running and hands, they do remind me, and this is a lofty name to throw out there, it does remind me a bit of Devontae Adams. Now, Adams is significantly better after the catch, which is why I wouldn't say that Tate is going to be Devontae Adams, because Adams is one of the best receivers we've seen in the last decade, in my opinion. But that ability to win with route craft and incredibly strong hands, he just feels like a really easy guy to project to the next level to me. So if you need a boundary receiver, for me, he's comfortably like, if you list those 4 guys I had in that first round, he's the guy you want.
Okay. And then in your top 10, which player do you think gets drafted the lowest or the furthest away from number 1?
Oh,
right? Because this could be a Caleb Downs conversation. This could be a
yeah,
Sonny Styles conversation.
I think that's a great question. There is an element of me. The safe option would be to say Jamon McCoy, the corner from Tennessee, right? Because he missed all of 2025 with an injury, and
I'll take that one. That's a great answer.
I think he'll go higher than people think, but it might be him. But I do think Styles will go lower. Certainly go lower than I've got him. I think he's probably in the more 10 to 15 range in terms of where Styles goes.
Who do you think goes first, Downs or Styles?
Oh, that is a hard question.
Because let me set you up a little bit. I'll let you think about it. So I think Styles plays a more important position. And I think Styles is graded higher than Downs for most. But I get the feeling that some people think Downs is a safer prospect.
I think Styles is a higher graded player for me. I think he's a more complete player. But I don't see how Downs get past the Bengals at 10. And it was always easy to say, oh, this is their flaw. They're not getting past that team. I just really don't see, with the way their defense is playing, I can't see, if he's on the board, him getting past there. Whereas I could see Styles falling to maybe the Cowboys at 12. So okay. I think McCoy is the safe answer, but I would not be surprised if it's Styles, which would break my heart, given he's my number 2 player and my top 50. But I just think this will be the best example of we've seen of how the NFL views the linebacker position in recent memory, because he's the best linebacker I've graded since Micah Parsons, but Parsons was always a guy with edge potential, right? Styles is a true off-ball linebacker. How high does the NFL value that in 2026?
Yeah. And you see, I have a theory that you can't play this weekend. So we are doing this podcast the morning of the conference championships. So if you look at Seattle and you look at the Rams and you look at the Patriots and you look at the Broncos, you don't get to this point of the NFL season without top-notch linebacker play. So you can get through whatever regular season games you want. You might even get through some earlier playoff games, but when you're playing at the end of the NFL season, you have good linebacker play. Now, the teams that are picking in the top 10, the only one that's even close to making the playoffs, I think, is the Rams, right? Because the Rams have the 13th overall pick, I believe. Might be the 12th. Right. But you need good linebacker play. Obviously, you need good play at a lot of different positions.
Yeah.
But usually the linebacker play at this time of year stands out. Linebackers make plays.
Yeah, and I think it's been such a difficult position to evaluate college to pro, because so often what they're asked to do at the college level is not really translatable. And what you end up seeing is guys that get taken in the first round are guys that are incredible athletes. Yeah, you look at it like, Devin White goes 5th overall. I think he ended up going. You've got Jamin Davis went to the Commanders. There's a bunch of those you can reel off of linebackers who go first round who are kind of athlete first and will coach it up. Styles to me is one of those rare guys where I look at it and go, yeah, you can just go in as a rookie and do what you're doing now. Like when you go, his DC in college was an NFL DC, right? Like they weren't just running like some gimmicky college stuff. He's the kind of guy who I can see being a day one value, and that's so rare at linebacker. And I've said this before. I think linebacker is like tight end. It's really there are not that many that are real, true difference-making talents, but to have one of them unlocks everything for your offense or your defense. And that's why to me Styles is 2, because yes, is it a traditional quote unquote premium position? No. But I think if you have a Fred Warner or a player like that, like they are a premium player on your defense.
Yes. I love talking about linebackers. Like I always say, there's never enough linebacker podcasts.
Yeah.
Right. And for some people, it's like the position they dislike evaluating.
Yeah, the amount of people I know who like they don't like scouting linebackers because there's a lot that goes into it, right? They're not necessarily an easy position to scout necessarily, but I think they're a great position to watch.
Yeah. So, any other players in your top 10 that you want to spend some time and highlight?
I mean, probably Jeremiah Love. Let's just give a shout out to Jeremiah Love. I've got him at 10. I think I said at the beginning, like my positional value is a factor in my big board. Like that's why he's 10 as a running back. He is one of the best running backs that we've seen in recent years. He's in that kind of conversation with Gentry, Bijan, that kind of. I don't think he's as good as Bijan, but he's in that conversation of those guys who you just take early and you don't really think too much about it. Size, speed, 3-down ability. Like he is the kind of player who can be the lifeblood of a run game from day one. I just hope, selfishly, that he lands somewhere that has a bit of an infrastructure in place. I don't want another Gentry situation where the talent is kind of wasted behind a bad offensive line. So I'm hoping as well that some teams have learned from that, because as much as I think he's an incredible playmaker, your running back is one piece of your run game. So I'll be interested to see where he goes and how much the Gentry pick impacts things, or if it doesn't at all and he just goes at 9 to the Chiefs or whoever.
Yeah, and I know that some of the Chiefs draft professors that have came on says Andy Reid doesn't use running backs. It would be foolish of Andy Reid to waste a top 10, his only top 10 draft pick.
Yeah, well,
on a position he typically doesn't use. And
also, I mean, how does it go last time they took a running back in the first round? Right, it didn't go well. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. So now. The thing, and that's the thing, right? I did a mock draft a couple of weeks ago. I'll be doing another one soon. But the last one I did, I can't remember where. I think I had him going to the Vikings at wherever they're picking, like 17, 18.
Yeah.
And someone's
The
like to me,
Vikings feel like Love's floor. I don't think he gets past the Vikings. The question is, would the Cardinals take him at 3? Would the Cowboys
and this
take
is the
him
thing,
at
and this is
12?
where I found it really difficult to mock, because if you're mocking and if you are the Chiefs, right, even if you just put aside what their team does and how they actually operate, you're picking in the top 10 for a reason, because things haven't gone well. There are players available at premium positions. I mean, can you sit there with a need along the offensive line, or a need at wide receiver, or a need at tight end, or a need at, edge, and say, no, I'm going to take a running back? Like, there's so many teams that you go, they'd be great with Jeremiah Love. But then you go, yeah, but they could have an edge rusher instead, or they could have a corner instead, or they could have a wide receiver, and that gets tricky. So I'll be fascinated to see where he goes.
So Jack, why don't we pause for podcaster identifications? Let everybody know about all of your draft content and the other podcasts you do.
Yeah. So all my work, or most of my work, is over at the Touchdown, which is the UK's biggest NFL and NFL draft site, where I head up all the NFL draft content. Really excited because we've now got our Perfect Picks series started, where we are going through kind of best scenarios for all 32 teams, and we've got some amazing guest writers lined up, some of whom feature on this channel. So we're really excited to get their brains involved, get them involved, talking about their favorite teams. There's going to be loads of stuff from me in the coming days on the Senior Bowl, a little bit on the Shrine Bowl as well, I'm hoping, if I get time. And then I'll be part of the Cheesehead TV draft guide again this year, doing kickers. So if you're a Packers fan, watch out for that. And then, I'm also at PFSN doing college football stuff, and then I'm here every Sunday.
Cool. Well, I want to thank Jack for podcasting here live on Sunday morning. So we're here every Sunday at 9 Eastern. Next week, Devin Jackson will be back. Devin is at the Shrine Bowl. That is why he is not here today. We're still confirming whether next week is going to be Senior Bowl or offensive tackles, but it will be Jack and Devin here at 9 a.m. And then every Friday at Draft Professor, so you can look at NFL Draft Fanatic. No, I Am Fanatic. Every Friday, we do a 32-person 3-round mock. So we have 32 people drafting for different teams. We do the mock. It's usually the most watched podcast of the week. If you want to sign up, just go to the Draft Professor Twitter. It's on the pinned post, and put your name down, and I will get back to you about either what team you want to draft for or what teams are available, and we can figure out who's drafting for who. But for Jack, myself, the 110 people at the Draft Professor, thank you so much for tuning in to this Sunday morning podcast. We will be podcasting again in 15 minutes on some defensive tackles. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a great day.